Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inner Spark, where stories light the fire inside you and remind you that strength lives in every one of us. Today's story is about courage, about the will to keep going even when your body is exhausted, your mind feels like giving up, and the world seems heavier than ever. Sometimes life brings us to the edge where we think, I can't do this anymore. But it's in those very moments when our energy is gone that our spirit has a chance to rise. This story is not just about survival, but about courage, persistence, and the fire inside that refuses to be put out. Before we dive in, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Inner Spark, and hit the bell icon so you never miss stories that can change the way you see life. Edwin was an ordinary man from Bristol, a construction worker who carried bricks, mixed cement, and worked under the blazing sun. He had always been known as reliable, the kind of man who would never leave a job half done. But life had been quietly wearing him down, bills piling up, his father's health declining, and his own dream of becoming an architect fading into the background. Every morning, Edwin woke before dawn, but lately, the fatigue in his bones was louder than his alarm clock, and he wondered if he had anything left to give. One Friday evening, after a long day, Edwin sat on his porch, staring at his worn boots. His friend Milton came by, excitedly sharing how he had landed a promotion at a tech firm in London. Edwin forced a smile, but inside, he felt a sharp sting. He thought of his younger self who once dreamed big, sketched buildings in the margins of notebooks, and believed in a future where his designs touched the skyline. Now, he was too tired to even pick up a pencil. He whispered to himself, maybe this is it. Maybe this is it. Maybe my life is just hard work with nothing more. But fate had another plan. That night, Edwin received a call from his younger sister, Marie, who told him their father's condition had worsened. The doctors advised an expensive surgery, and they needed funds quickly. Edwin's heart sank, but then something lit within him. He couldn't give up. Not now. Not when his family needed him most. He decided he would take on extra shifts, even if it broke him. The next morning, he returned to work with blistered hands, but a new fire in his chest. He thought, this pain is temporary. My father's life matters more. Days turned into weeks, and Edwin pushed himself harder than ever. His colleagues noticed how pale he looked, how his hands shook at times, but Edwin smiled and brushed it off. Late at night, when exhaustion nearly made him collapse, he sat at his old desk and started sketching again. At first, it was just to distract himself, but soon the lines turned into buildings, the buildings into blueprints, and the blueprints into hope. He realized that even when tired, creativity gave him energy, like a secret reservoir hidden deep inside his soul. One evening, Milton visited Edwin again, this time seeing the drawings spread across the table. These are brilliant, Milton said, genuinely impressed. Why are you hiding this talent? Edwin laughed bitterly, explaining he had no time, no money, and no connections. But Milton shook his head and said, you're wrong, mate. You got something powerful here. Let me show these to someone I know. Edwin hesitated, afraid of disappointment, but deep down, a small voice urged him to trust. Weeks later, Milton returned with surprising news. An architect in London had seen Edwin's sketches and wanted to meet him. At first, Edwin didn't believe it. It felt like a cruel joke. But Milton insisted, and Edwin reluctantly agreed. The night before the meeting, fear crept in. He almost called to cancel, thinking he was too uneducated, too tired, too ordinary. But then he looked at his father resting in a hospital bed and thought, if I can carry bricks every day, I can carry this chance too. The meeting was far from smooth. Edwin arrived nervous, his clothes not nearly as polished as the others in the office. He stumbled over his words, his hands trembling as he showed his designs. The architect, Mr. Walker, studied them silently. For a moment, Edwin thought he was about to be laughed out of the room. Then Mr. Walker leaned back and said, you've got raw talent. It's not polished, but it's real. With training, you could go far. Edwin felt tears sting his eyes. For the first time in years, someone saw him not as a laborer, but as a creator. Still, reality was harsh. Training required time and money he didn't have. Edwin returned home, torn between two worlds, one of responsibility and one of possibility. That night, he nearly gave in to despair again. But Marie reminded him, "You've carried us through so much already. Maybe it's time to let your dream carry you." Her words struck him deeply. Could chasing his dream actually make him stronger for his family, rather than weaker? The next months were brutal. Edwin worked during the day and studied at night, barely sleeping, often doubting himself. But every time exhaustion screamed, he remembered his father's smile after surgery, the gratitude in Marie's eyes, and Milton's belief in him. Slowly, step by step, his confidence grew. His drawings improved, his presentation sharpened, and his vision became clearer. People around him began to notice a transformation. Edwin was no longer just enduring. He was creating. Then came the twist no one expected. Edwin's father, though recovering well, sat him down one evening and said, "Son, stop sacrificing your dream for me. I'll live my life. It's your turn to live yours." Edwin broke down in tears, realizing that the very man he had been fighting for now wanted him to fight for himself. The courage to keep going was no longer about duty alone. It was about destiny. Months later, Edwin submitted a design for a local housing project competition. He didn't expect much, but when the results were announced, his design was selected as the winner. His humble sketches, born from nights of fatigue and stubborn persistence, had turned into a vision that inspired others. Edwin stood on the stage, not as a worker covered in cement, but as an architect in the making, his dream finally alive. But life tested him again. Just when Edwin thought he was rising, the construction company he worked for laid off dozens of workers, and his name was on the list. For a moment, fear gripped him. Without a steady income, how could he survive? Yet, instead of collapsing, he chose to use the time to focus on his designs, applying for small freelance projects. Strangely, losing his job became the push he needed to step fully into the path he had long avoided. And in another unexpected turn, Marie introduced him to a professor at her university who admired Edwin's raw talent and offered him a part-time teaching assistant role. For the first time, Edwin wasn't just building his own future. He was inspiring others to believe in theirs. It wasn't money that fueled him anymore, but purpose. The exhaustion was still there, but it felt different now. It was the tiredness of growth, not despair. The journey wasn't over. Edwin still faced struggles, balancing work, family, and studies. But now, when fatigue came, he no longer feared it. He had learned that being tired didn't mean he was weak. It meant he was fighting, growing, and moving closer to his true purpose. And with every brick he lifted, every line he drew, he built not just structures, but a future that proved one thing. Courage isn't about never being tired. It's about moving forward even when you are. Edwin's story is a reminder that exhaustion is not the end. It's often the beginning of something greater. Every moment he felt like giving up was a doorway to growth, resilience, and destiny. He discovered that courage is not about having endless energy, but about choosing to rise when your strength feels gone. His journey teaches us that sometimes life's hardest trials are the very moments that shape us into who we were always meant to be. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Inner Spark, and share it with someone who needs to hear this today.